Hello and welcome. This is TVC News Politics on Sunday. We're coming to you live from our studio in Abuja, the federal capital. I am Femi Akonde. Well, we already know that Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa has been elected to serve one term as governor of Ondo State. He won majority of votes in all 18 local government areas of the state. Now, out of 508,963 votes cast, the APC candidate polled 366,781 votes to defeat his closest challenger in the People's Democratic Party, who scored a total of 117,845 votes. Well, there are more than 1.7 million registered voters in Ondo State, but out of this number, only 24.8% came out to vote. Yaga Africa says several factors such as lack of trust in the electoral process, quality of leadership, and economic and security realities are one of the reasons for the low voter turnout in Ondo State. Well, let's also tell you that President Bola Tinubu has congratulated the winner of Saturday's governorship election in Ondo State. That's Mr. Lucky Ayedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress. He also commended the peaceful conduct of the process. The president congratulated other candidates of the 17 political parties for the maturity and sense of purpose demonstrated during the campaigns and the election, attributing the success of the polls to the civility in the state. He called on the political actors to allow their orderly conduct to permeate the post-election activities and processes. President Bola Tinubu believes the Ondo State election was another litmus test for the capacity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The president also commended the electoral body for the efficiency of uploading more than 98% of the results on the same day of the election. Well, President Bola Tinubu also urged candidates dissatisfied with the outcome of the election to explore the opportunities provided by the judicial system to seek redress on areas of conflicts. Well, and for the People's Democratic Party, the People's Democratic Party has rejected the outcome of this Ondo State governorship election. They described it as a sham. And they say, indeed, all lovers of democracy in Nigeria and across the world have just witnessed the worst election conducted by INEC. Well, they are saying that the election in Ondo State runs short of all expectations and requirements of a free, fair, and credible election, as it was witnessed in the height of what they call electoral swindle, deceit, and manipulation. They say this election witnessed widespread merchandising, monetization, barefaced vote buying, and all other tools used by political parties, to win votes. Well, we'll put all of these now into perspective on the program, and joining me from Akure, the capital of Ondo State, is a member of Yaga Africa, Yaga Africa's working group, Professor Chris Kwaja. He was also part of that monitoring of the electoral process in Ondo State. Hello, Prof. Good to have you on the program. Hello, Professor Kwaja. Well, we'll take a quick break at this point and just quickly sort out the connectivity issue we're having with Professor Kwaja. And when we return, we'll continue with our program. Don't go away. This is still Politics on Sunday. Well, good to have you back. Professor Chris Kwaja from Yaga Africa's working group joins me now to put the issues into perspective. Hello, Prof. Good to see you.
Good evening, and good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah, let's dive straight into it. The Ondo State governorship election. The issues, straight up, voter turnout, low voter turnout, and we have seen a decline in the turnout of voters from, 2012 to now. In the last election, yesterday's election just had about 24.8% turnout of registered voters. Yaga has attributed this to some factors, you're saying some factors could be responsible for this low voter turnout. But why is there this decline? How are things getting this bad?
First, I want to congratulate the people of Ondo State for their orderliness, which resulted in the conduct of an election that was peaceful. But this election provides an interesting context about two major issues. The first is the role of money in defining the process and outcome of elections. The second is the role that political parties themselves play in terms of their inability to properly educate and mobilize voters to come out and vote. One of the primary responsibilities that political parties have is to inform, to educate, and mobilize their members. Unfortunately, the election in Ondo is one in which less than 30% of the people of Ondo came out to cast their vote.
And you think the political parties should be solely responsible for that?
The political parties should be held responsible for that, because that is their primary duty. The second is that as Nigerians, we also have civic responsibility to come out and cast our votes, because we are citizens, and whoever will present himself or herself as a leader in Nigeria should be one that is a product of citizens deciding the fate of such an individual or individuals. Unfortunately, we have a governor. We congratulate him. Unfortunately, the governor is coming into power with a vote that is far less than 50% of the total votes in the state. So voter apathy is a major issue for Nigerians, and this is not the first time we've been drawing attention to the fact that the declining interest of citizens to come out and vote in deciding who governs them is a troubling phenomenon in our political system. This is one issue that we need to deal with. If not, then there will be a huge problem that will confront us as a people.
Okay, Prof, let's talk about, Prof, sorry to quote you. Yaga Africa released a report, talking about the issues and the outcome of the election. In that report, Yaga Africa pointed out several factors, including lack of trust in the electoral process. Not necessarily now that political parties did not do their job, but the people do not trust the process. That is the issue.
Yeah, the lack of trust in the electoral process can be discussed within a broader discourse on lack of trust in governance. When citizens are failed by their leaders, they lose interest in coming out to even vote for the next round of elections. So we are talking about lack of trust in governance because public institutions are not living up to expectations in terms of what they should do. And state responsibility is basically two: state responsibility to protect citizens and state responsibility to provide for the welfare of the citizens. Corruption has become a defining feature of what state officials do. And this comes at the expense of the livelihood and the future of citizens. Now, because citizens feel they have not been treated fairly, justly, they now resort to not going out to vote. Let the political parties, let INEC do what it feels is the best. We are not going out to vote. But we need to invest in civic activism. Holding leaders accountable should be one of the primary duties of citizens. And we are calling on citizens that the decision not to go out and vote is inimical to their own growth and development, to their own role as individuals or group of persons that should be stakeholders in this journey of democracy. They should take the bull by the horn by investing in civic education, civic activism from the family up to other agents of socialization in our society.
All right, Prof, you also talked about, the role of money, which you say was a critical factor in this Ondo State governorship election. But we also saw a deployment of about 22,000 policemen. We saw a deployment of members of the EFCC. We saw the DSS around. But the issue of vote buying still persists. Is it that they are not doing their job well enough, or this vote buying is something that really can't be checked?
Our observers reported a phenomenon of the DSS arresting some persons that were involved in vote buying. But in a state of 18 local governments, and you arrest just one, when in fact people have been raising alarm that prior to the election, vote buying, voter inducement has been a major phenomenon. It's been part of campaign rallies and some of the activities of candidates and political parties. Nothing has been done. This is one area that we need to really address. Go back to the Uwais report. It drew attention to the fact that if we don't demonetize the role that inducement, voter inducement plays in our political system, then we are far from having credible elections. Because what vote buying does is that it creates an unbalanced political environment where those with access to resources and state power take advantage of the vulnerability of citizens, of the poverty situation of these people, and begin to buy votes instead of, or rather than allowing them to decide their candidates of the candidates of their choice. We have consistently been advising citizens that that money is your money. You can collect the money, but let the money not define your conscience. Collect the money, but vote for the candidate of your choice. Our key institutions like the DSS and the EFCC have a huge role to play in monitoring the flow of money. The banks also need to be held responsible because these are the areas where these monies are accessed. Prior to the elections, it's important for the DSS and the EFCC to work with the bank to track the flow of money. Huge cash withdrawals for money from the banks. BDCs are also areas that we should look out for. The institutions have a duty to lay important surveillance within those areas with a view to tracking how monies in millions are leaving these banks and being stashed into locations for vote buying.
Yeah, you said, you talk to citizens and sensitizing them. You tell them that it is their money, collect the money. But is that not encouraging them to become accomplices, aiding and abetting this kind of electoral fraud or electoral malpractice? Shouldn't they be better sensitized on rejecting the money? Because if there's no giver, there's no taker.
Citizens,
or if there's no taker, there will be no giver.
I am not encouraging citizens. I am not encouraging citizens to be accomplices. I am encouraging them to fight it. If the money comes, they collect, and they don't vote for the person that brings the money, the next time he will not bring the money. And that is the only way to deal with it, because you are confronted with the money. So it's a face-to-face interaction. While the institutions responsible for dealing with these issues are working at that level, if you come face-to-face with this money, then you need to also teach the politicians and their candidates a lesson that we are more than what you think. You can't just come and buy our votes. If you allow them go with the money, it's possible there are other vulnerable people somewhere that will capitulate into this ugly situation.
Well, let's look at the conduct now of INEC, the electoral umpire. How well have they improved looking at their performance in Ondo State governorship election?
We commended INEC at two levels. One, in terms of the preparedness, in terms of the level of effort that INEC put in on the elections. We've seen improvement compared to what we saw in Ondo in Edo recently. Secondly, we commended INEC from the perspective of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, the role that the security agencies and security agents played, which was very professional. Though there were examples of harassment of citizens, but that was just 7% across the locations that we monitored, which was quite commendable compared to other instances where the brazenness with which security agents harass citizens and go without sanctions became so worrisome over time. I think part of what we've done as civil society is that we've amplified this call by civil society organizations and citizens that INEC, through the Interagency Consultative Forum on Consultative Committee on Election Security, must live above board in terms of how it ensures that citizens are not harassed, citizens are secured, the environment within which elections are conducted are also secured. We saw that, and that was responsible for the orderliness and the peacefulness of the elections that we saw in Ondo State yesterday.
Okay, well, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has joined his voice to the calls for electoral reforms, but he's saying that one of the ways to ensure or achieve electoral reforms will be to fire the chairman of the Electoral Commission and other officials of that commission at all levels. You know, he said that during the 2023 election, INEC willfully failed to utilize two main technological tools at its disposal, the BVAS and the IREV. How effective was these technological tools, BVAS and IREV, at the just concluded Ondo State governorship election?
Yeah, because we are dealing with an off-cycle election, it was easy for INEC to deploy all its capacity, all its capabilities and resources to ensure credible, free and fair elections. And that's what we saw in Ondo. It's possible if the election was a nationwide election, we will see cases or instances of the BVAS not functioning the way we saw in Ondo. We commend INEC on this because across many of the polling units, the BVAS worked. Where they had malfunctioning BVAS, it was easy for them to replace these BVAS. This is quite commendable. But one area, back to the point that the former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo made about our elections, is that the absence of sanctions in the political system encourages more and more of these infractions that we see. It is important that INEC should also do a self-reflection on the conduct of elections and begin to look at how well it can address some of the issues associated with the shortfalls or some of the problems that citizens have drawn its attention to in terms of the role that its own staff and personnel play in undermining or compromising the electoral process.
Well, let's look at our political parties generally now. You have said that they did not do a good job in sensitizing the people, encouraging them to come out and cast their vote. That's why we saw that low voter turnout. Let's talk about the kind of engagement they had leading to this election. Did you see or hear them talk about issues? What kind of campaign did they have?
Yesterday we were discussing about this campaign informally. And I was asking a friend of mine, because I saw a campaign poster and something was written. And I said, but it was written in Yoruba. I said, what's this? And he said, they said, vote for a good head. So this is just one example of the kind of statement you find amongst the political class in campaigning, which means issue-based campaigns are yet to be given or accorded the kind of prominence in our country that we require. And this is one key area of interest for civil society and Nigerians in general. It is not enough for people to say, I am the best candidate to vote for me. The pedigree, the integrity, the credibility of such an individual need to be interrogated. The history of what such an individual have done in the past need to be reviewed with a view to ensuring that as citizens vote for such individuals, there is value for the vote. If we don't engage citizens in that way, then we will continue to recycle the kind of bad leaders that we have across our society today. And my expectation beyond Ondo is that we will all invest in this political system in a way that empowers citizens to ask the right question, in a way that empowers citizens to identify individuals with the capacity and the credibility to give them what they want in terms of delivering the dividends of democracy to them. And the dividends of democracy is not just about constructing roads. It's about accountability. It's about the rule of law, ensuring that every citizen is accorded the kind of attention that he or she deserves, regardless of his religion, ethnicity, political party, or any other affiliation in this country.
Yes, Prof, before we round up, elections are becoming quite expensive now, not just for the political parties, but also for government agencies, electoral bodies. For instance, deployment of 22,000 police officers, that costs a lot of money. How do we simplify all of these things and spend less to conduct elections?
The deployment of over 20,000 security personnel in Ondo on its own raises a very serious concern about the securitization of election. This should not be the case. Election is a civil matter. It requires government to adopt the most simple method in ensuring that elections are conducted peacefully. This is one area that Nigerians need to look at critically to ensure that we don't over-securitize or over-militarize the system under the guise of conducting elections. Interestingly, the amount of the kind of resources we see being deployed for elections, we don't even see them when it comes to how we deal with bandits and other organized criminal groups across the country. So there is some kind of confusion in this context, and it is important for government to look inward with a view to ensuring that we don't create this siege mentality in the minds and hearts of citizens just because we are conducting elections. We need to look at how well to deploy and either do proper analysis. States where we know require more personnel, we send them to those areas. Right. Interestingly, Akure is one, Ondo State is one state that can be defined as a peaceful state because it has a long history of having peaceful elections conducted. So the number of personnel, security personnel, sent to Ondo for me and for Yaga Africa is uncalled for.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Professor Chris Kwaja, joining us from Akure, the capital of Ondo State. Professor Chris Kwaja is from Yaga Africa's working group. Thank you very much for your time on the program. Well, that's all we have time for on the program today. I am Femi Akonde. I'll see you next time, but I'll leave you with, well, the reaction of Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa to his electoral victory.